This is a short story produced by StoryStream called Dead Broke in Eastport, a zombie apocalypse survival story, created by Christopher A. Lee and narrated by Brian Lawson. Thank you for listening to this story. If you could leave the name of the city you are listening from, it might randomly get picked for our Zombie Snapshot series. And if you enjoyed this short story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 1, The Doyle Curse. The Doyle family was a disaster long before the dead started walking. Ruby Doyle sat in the back of the battered Ford Econoline, boots on the dashboard, eyes narrowed at the road ahead. She'd been the only one in the family with enough sense to leave Eastport years ago, but blood and dumb luck had dragged her back. Now she was stuck in a van with three men who all made her want to eat a bullet. Jimmy, the eldest, drove like a man rehearsing for a demolition derby. His thinning hair was slicked back with motor oil and poor decisions. "We hit the bank at 9 sharp, he said, slapping the steering wheel. "In and out." "Nobody gets hurt." Ruby rolled her eyes. "You've been saying that since we were kids, Jimmy. Back then it was candy bars. Now it's federal felonies." Danny, wedged in the middle seat, chewed gum so loud it made Ruby's teeth ache. His eyes darted around nervously. "This is crazy. We'll get caught. We'll end up in jail or worse." "That's the spirit," Ruby muttered. Murphy, the youngest, leaned forward from the back, grinning like a madman. His camouflage jacket stank of old cigarettes, and a pistol sat tucked in his waistband like a toy. "Relax, Danny boy. The government wants us scared. They pump fear through the airwaves. But not me. I see through it. Besides, I brought backup." He patted the duffel bag by his feet. Ruby eyed it. "What kind of backup?" Murphy winked. "Surprises." Danny swallowed hard. The van rattled through the narrow streets of Eastport, past shuttered shops and rust-stained signs. The harbor fog rolled in thick, swallowing the world in damp gray. Somewhere out there, the sea creaked against the docks like it was laughing. Ruby hated being back. The Doyle name was poison in Eastport. Grandpa Doyle had run Harbor View Retirement Home into the ground. Uncle Sean had set fire to his lobster boat while drunk. And Jimmy? Well, Jimmy had a rap sheet longer than Route 1. The locals whispered about the Doyle curse, and Ruby had spent years proving them wrong. Now here she was, riding shotgun in the middle of another half-baked scheme, one car crash away from proving them right. At Harbor View, Grandpa Doyle slammed his walker down onto the rec room floor. The surviving seniors looked up from their bingo cards, unimpressed. "They say the Doyle curse kills everything it touches," Grandpa barked. His eyes were bloodshot, his knuckles scarred. "But tonight? Tonight it kills back." Peggy O'Malley, sharp-eyed even at 80, snorted. "Sit down, Ray. You've been preaching doom since Carter was in office." "Doom's here whether you like it or not," Grandpa said, pointing a trembling finger toward the rattling windows. "World's gone rotten. You can smell it in the air. Death's coming, and it ain't natural." Gus, leaning on his denture spear, a walker with false teeth duct taped to the end, chuckled. "You've been saying that since your gallbladder surgery." Grandpa growled, pacing. "Laugh all you want. You'll wish you listened when the dead start walking." As if on cue, something thumped against the far wall. A slow, dragging scrape, followed by a hollow moan. The seniors went quiet. Peggy frowned at the window. "That ain't the wind." Another moan echoed down the hallway, closer this time. Grandpa's lips curled into a grin. "Told you." The Doyle curse always comes knocking. Back in the van, Ruby felt it too. The fog had gone still, heavy, like the town was holding its breath. Jimmy drummed his fingers on the wheel. "This is it. Big score. New start." Danny chewed his gum faster, jaw working overtime. Murphy unzipped the duffel, revealing a mess of mismatched grenades and old ammo. His grin widened. "Time to make history." Ruby sighed, gripping her shotgun. "Or headlines." As the van rolled into Main Street, the first shadow moved through the fog. A shambling figure, pale and torn. Danny squinted. Is that guy drunk?" The figure lifted its head. Half its face was gone, teeth bared in a wet snarl. Ruby chambered a shell, the click loud in the silence. "Not drunk?" The Doyle curse had finally caught up. Chapter 2, The Heist Before Breakfast. Jimmy Doyle thought of himself as a criminal mastermind, Nobody else did. He parked the battered Econoline outside Eastport Savings and Loan, cracked his knuckles, and turned to his siblings. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair matted from cheap pomade and bad decisions. All right, team. This is it. In and out. Nobody gets hurt. Ruby groaned, racking her shotgun. You said the same thing about stealing Aunt Maggie's car. We ended up in juvie and she still wants your head on a platter. Danny chewed his gum loud enough to make Ruby want to choke him. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be leaving town. Did you see that thing in the fog? Jimmy waved him off. Guy with a skin condition. Focus, Danny boy. We're here for cash, not ghost stories. Murphy patted his duffel bag of grenades. And if the government shows up, I've got the answers. They can't silence the truth. Ruby pinched the bridge of her nose. You're the reason the truth wants to die. Inside the bank, the fluorescent lights buzzed like a bad headache. A half-dozen locals waited in line, clutching checks and passbooks. The teller looked up with all the enthusiasm of a damp sponge. Jimmy swaggered in, pistol raised. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a stick-up. The gun clicked. Nothing happened. Ruby groaned. You forgot to chamber a round, genius? She yanked her own shotgun up. Everyone on the floor now. The crowd gasped and obeyed. Danny hovered near the door, hands trembling. I'll keep the engine running. Good, Ruby said. Try not to lock the doors this time. Danny scurried outside, fumbling with the keys. Jimmy tried to look menacing, waving his empty pistol. Nobody move, and nobody gets hurt. A kid whispered, Is this a joke? Ruby shot the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Does this look like a joke to you? The hostages screamed, dropping flat. Jimmy jumped at the blast, nearly dropping his gun. Murphy hopped the counter and started stuffing bills into a duffel. Easy pickings. Too easy, which means it's a trap. Ruby barked, Just grab the money. Outside, Danny leaned against the van, chewing gum like his jaw was motorized. The fog rolled thicker, muffling sound. A shape stumbled out of it. A fisherman in torn overalls. Danny squinted. You okay, man? Rough night? The fisherman turned. Half his jaw dangled, skin sloughing off in wet chunks. He moaned, stumbling forward with hungry eyes. Danny's gum dropped out of his mouth. Oh, hell no! He scrambled back into the van, fumbling with the lock. Of course, he hit the wrong button. The doors clicked shut just as the fisherman slammed against the glass, smearing blood across it. Danny screamed, pounding on the horn. Inside the bank, everyone froze at the sound. What the hell was that? Ruby hissed. Murphy peered through the window. Oh, ho, ho, boys and girls, it's starting. Told you. Government experiments, breaking containment. The fisherman staggered into the lobby, jaws snapping. The security guard rushed forward, only to have his throat ripped out in a spray of gore. The hostages shrieked. Blood spattered across the counter. The zombie turned, teeth bared, growling. Jimmy's pistol clattered to the floor. Oh, God. Ruby raised her shotgun. Welcome to Eastport, folks. She fired. The fisherman's head exploded in a mist of bone and brains. The bank descended into chaos. Zombies staggered through the fog outside, drawn by noise. One crashed through the front door, dragging a screaming woman with him. Blood sprayed across the tile. Ruby blasted another, Gore painting the walls. Grab the cash and move, Jimmy shouted. What about the plan? The plan's dead, Ruby barked. Murphy whooped, lobbing a paperweight at a zombie's head. The truth is out there, and it's hungry. Danny finally unlocked the van door, yelling from outside. They're everywhere. Ruby cursed, pumping another round into the chamber. Congratulations, Jimmy. You wanted action? You just got the apocalypse. Chapter 3, A Robbery Gone Wrong. The Doyle family's bank heist lasted exactly 7 minutes before the zombies showed up. Inside Eastport Savings and Loan, Jimmy stood on the counter, waving his pistol like he was directing traffic. Nobody move! Nobody! Click. The gun jammed again. Ruby groaned. For God's sake, Jimmy, just hold the bags and look scary. Murphy was already behind the counter, stuffing wads of bills into a duffel. He cackled as he worked. Too easy. Too damn easy, which means it's a trap. Classic government setup. Danny peeked through the front windows, chewing his gum furiously. The fog outside pressed close, swallowing the street. Guys? The first figure staggered in, a fisherman, face half-eaten, jaw slack. His eyes were clouded milk white. The hostages screamed. Ruby raised her shotgun, sight steady. Not a customer. Boom! The fisherman's skull burst like an overripe melon, spraying blood across the teller windows. The lobby erupted. Another corpse stumbled through the broken door, guts dragging like seaweed. A tourist in an I Heart Eastport shirt lurched in after him, intestines flapping against his knees. The hostages shrieked. One bolted for the exit and was dragged down instantly, her throat torn out in a spray of crimson. Ruby blasted again, gore splattering her boots. "Grab the money and move!" Jimmy hopped down, duffel half empty. "But the plan—" "The plan's dead!" Ruby barked. She shoved him toward the exit. Danny clawed at the van's locks outside, shrieking as zombies battered the glass. "Let me in!" Of course he'd locked himself out. His gum stuck to his chin. Forgotten. Inside, Murphy found a broom and swung it like a bat, knocking a zombie's jaw clean off. It hit the floor with a wet plop. He howled with laughter. "See? Proof. They fall apart faster than the American economy." Ruby cursed, firing again. The recoil numbed her arms. 2 more corpses fell, but 3 more pushed in. Jimmy tripped over a hostage, crashing into a desk. The pistol flew from his hands and skittered across the tile. Ruby grabbed him by the collar. "You're useless." Danny pounded the van horn outside. The sound blared across Main Street, echoing through the fog. The moaning multiplied. Ruby's stomach dropped. Great. Dinner bell. Zombies poured in now, a tide of flesh and teeth. The air reeked of salt and rot. Murphy tossed a stapler like a grenade. It bounced off a corpse's forehead and did nothing. "Damn, out of ammo!" Ruby shot another in the chest, but it barely slowed. She switched to bashing, butt of the shotgun crunching into bone. Blood sprayed the walls. Hostages screamed. One slipped in the gore and cracked her head on the floor. Jimmy scrambled for the dropped pistol, finally chambering a round. Too late. A zombie fell on him, jaws snapping at his throat. Ruby blew its head off, chunks splattering Jimmy's face. He gagged. "I had it under control." "Sure you did," Ruby snapped. The Doyles finally barreled out of the bank, duffel swinging, smoke and screams behind them. Danny fumbled with the van door until Ruby shoved it open. They piled inside, gasping. Murphy wiped blood from his cheek, eyes wild. "Told you. This isn't coincidence. This is controlled. They're testing us." Ruby slammed the door. "They're eating us, you lunatic." Outside, the moaning grew louder. Through the fog, dozens of figures shambled into view, filling Main Street with hunger and death. Danny whimpered. "We're screwed." Ruby cocked her shotgun, teeth bared. Not yet. Chapter 4. Bridge of Bones. The Doyle van fishtailed onto the old steel and wood drawbridge, tires screeching against rusted beams. Zombies swarmed behind them, a tide of teeth and claws spilling out of Main Street. Danny sat in the back, chewing his gum like his life depended on it. "We're gonna die, we're gonna die." Ruby pumped her shotgun, glaring at him. "Chew louder, Danny. Maybe they'll choke on your panic first." Jimmy slammed the wheel, eyes wide. "Shut up and let me drive." "You call this driving?" Ruby shot back as the van clipped the side rail, sparks flying. The bridge wasn't empty. A military Humvee blocked half the span, headlights glaring through the fog. Soldiers shouted, rifles raised. "Stop! Stop the vehicle!" Jimmy floored it. "We're not stopping." The Humvee opened fire. Bullets shredded the van's grill. Danny screamed and ducked, gum flying from his mouth and sticking to the ceiling. Ruby fired out the window. The blast echoed, sending a soldier spinning off the bridge, screaming all the way down. Murphy cackled, waving his duffel. "It's a cover-up! They're silencing witnesses!" He pulled a grenade, teeth clamping on the pin. Ruby slapped it out of his hand before he could throw. "Not unless you want to drown faster." The van skidded sideways as zombies reached the bridge. They swarmed the Humvee, dragging screaming soldiers out through shattered windows. Gunfire and screams mixed with the groan of the horde. One flaming zombie clambered onto the van roof, pounding. The metal groaned under its weight. Danny shrieked, "It's on the roof! It's on the roof!" Ruby braced herself. shoved the shotgun upward, and fired. The blast tore a hole in the roof in the zombie's chest. Its flaming corpse rolled off into the river below. The van shuddered. Jimmy fought the wheel. "We're stuck!" Ruby kicked the side door open. Cold river water churned below, black and endless. Danny's eyes bulged. "No! No way! I don't swim!" "You barely breathe," Ruby snapped. "Jump or die." Jimmy hesitated, gripping the wheel. "We can fight." Ruby grabbed him by the collar. "You can drown just as easy as fight, dumbass." She leapt first, vanishing into the fog. Jimmy swore and followed, limbs flailing. Danny pinched his nose, squealing, and hurled himself after them. Murphy went last, bellowing, "Geronimo!" As he cannonballed into the river, grenades strapped to his chest like water wings. The van tilted, overrun with clawing corpses. A soldier's scream cut short as teeth tore into his throat. The Econoline gave one final groan and slid sideways off the bridge, crashing into the water below. At Harbor View, Grandpa Doyle stood by the window, watching the flames rising from town. The retirement home shook as another distant explosion rattled the night. Peggy adjusted her pool cue, eyes narrowed. "What the hell's happening down there?" Grandpa smirked, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. "The Doyle curse is spreading." Gus sharpened his denture spear on the floor. "About damn time." From the hallway came a wet, dragging moan. The seniors turned as three corpses shuffled into view. Residents they'd lost last week, pale and hungry. Grandpa grinned, raising his walker. "Showtime." Chapter 5, Senior Slaughterhouse, Harborview Retirement Home, had never been lively, until the dead came back. Flames from the town lit the hallways in a flickering glow. The smell of smoke mixed with disinfectant and piss. The shuffle of slippers was replaced by the scrape of claws. Grandpa Doyle gripped Harold's walker axe, jaw clenched. "All right, listen up. This is our home, and damned if we're letting corpses redecorate." Peggy O'Malley rolled her eyes, pool cue clutched like a saber. "Ray, you've been dying for 20 years. Just admit you want the attention." "Lady, I don't need attention," Grandpa snapped. "I need heads to crack." The hallway groaned as three corpses shuffled closer. Former residents, their nightgowns stained dark. Gus, grinning wide, jabbed with his denture spear. "About damn time." I was getting bored. The first corpse lurched at Peggy. She swung, pool cue crunching into its jaw. Teeth rattled onto the linoleum. The second clawed at Gus. He rammed his spear into its gut, dentures snapping shut like a shark. Grandpa Doyle swung Harold's walker, the metal edge caving in a skull. Brains sprayed across the bingo board at the end of the hall. Mrs. Hendricks waddled up behind them, cast iron skillet in hand. She swung low, shattering a zombie's kneecap. It crumpled. She finished it with a skillet to the head. The rec room erupted in cheers. Even Harold, still duct-taped to his wheelchair, clapped his hands against his armrests. Grandpa grinned, chest heaving. "Told you." The Doyle curse kills back. The doors shuddered as more corpses pressed against them. The barricade of chairs and tables creaked. Peggy hissed. "They'll break through." "Then we break them first," Grandpa barked. The barricade collapsed. The horde poured in, half-burnt corpses, one still wearing a hospital gown, another dragging its IV stand. The seniors roared like it was Friday night bowling. Peggy stabbed a zombie through the eye. Gus impaled two at once, dentures clicking. Mrs. Hendricks flattened skulls with her skillet, every swing echoing like a dinner bell. One zombie tripped over Harold's chair. He rolled forward accidentally, smashing it under his wheels. "Harold saves the day again," Grandpa muttered. The dining hall became a slaughterhouse. Blood sprayed the walls. Limbs littered the tile. Zombies slipped in pools of gore, only to be brained by cackling octogenarians. Peggy smashed one across the head, shrieking, "That's for canceling our water aerobics." Gus rammed his walker into another, laughing. "Better than shuffleboard," Grandpa roared, swinging his axe in wide arcs. Skulls cracked, bones splintered. "This is for bingo night." For once, Harborview felt alive, but the noise was deafening. More moans answered from outside. The windows rattled as silhouettes pressed against the glass. Peggy froze, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. "There's too many." Grandpa wiped gore from his cheek, eyes blazing. Then we killed too many. The windows shattered. Dozens more spilled inside, drawn by blood and fire. The seniors squared their shoulders, gripping their weapons tighter. Grandpa bared his teeth in a grin. Welcome to Harbor View. Chapter 6. Down the river into the fire. The Penobscot River was black and merciless, swallowing the Doyles whole. Ruby broke the surface first, gasping. She dragged Danny up by his collar while he flailed like a drowning cat. Jimmy sputtered beside them, clinging to a floating plank. Then Murphy popped up downstream, grenade duffel strapped to his chest like a life preserver. See? Told you. Amphibious. They can't kill me. I'm evolution. Ruby coughed up water. You're barely human. Danny hacked, choking. I swallowed a fish. I know it. Protein, Ruby muttered, hauling him toward shore. The current slammed them against the piling, sweeping them toward the rocky bank. Ruby clawed for purchase, Jimmy helping drag Danny out of the muck. Murphy floated in last, rolling onto the mud like a beach seal. Ruby collapsed, soaked and shaking. Everyone alive? Jimmy nodded, pale. Danny sneezed river water. Murphy raised a fist. Alive, armed, and damp. Ruby glared at the duffel. How many grenades are left? Murphy unzipped it proudly. Couple dozen, give or take. They got wet, but so what? Government grade doesn't rust. Ruby stared. Murphy, you bought those at a flea market. Danny groaned. We're gonna blow up before the zombies even get us. The fog thinned enough to reveal Eastport burning. Firelight glowed across the rooftops. Sirens wailed, then cut short with screams. The Doyle van was gone, dragged under with the dead. Ruby spat mud. Town's finished. Jimmy shook his head. No, we just regroup. We find a safe spot. Danny hugged himself, barefoot and shivering. Safe? Nothing's safe. Murphy pointed at the skyline. Harbor View. See the glow? They're torching it. Told you. Controlled demolition. They're cleaning house. Ruby narrowed her eyes at the rising smoke. Or someone's fighting back. At Harbor View, fighting back was exactly what they were doing. The dining hall was a war zone. Zombies poured in through shattered windows, the barricades nothing but splinters. The seniors fought like devils. Peggy jabbed with her pool cue, face streaked with blood. Ray, this is insane, Grandpa Doyle roared, smashing skulls with Harold's walker axe. Insane keeps us alive. Gus jabbed his denture spear into a zombie's eye socket, twisting until it popped. He laughed like a man who'd won the lottery. Mrs. Hendricks swung her skillet until her arms shook, each blow leaving dents in bone. Harold rolled circles in his duct-taped chair, humming, occasionally clipping zombies at the knees. One toppled onto him, only to be finished by Grandpa's axe. Harold saves the day again, Grandpa muttered. But the dead kept coming. The propane tanks in the maintenance wing hissed under heat. Flames licked at the walls. Smoke curled into every corner. Peggy coughed, eyes watering. Ray, we can't hold this. We'll burn alive. Grandpa glanced at the tanks, then back at the horde. His lips curled into a wicked grin. Then let's make sure we take them with us. Back on the riverbank, Ruby pulled herself to her feet. The others staggered behind her, dripping and pale. Danny whimpered, hopping on one foot. Something sharp just stabbed me. I'm bleeding. It's infected. Ruby smacked him on the back of the head. It's a stick. Move. Jimmy wiped mud from his face. We head for Harbor View. If anyone's alive, they'll be there. Murphy grinned, holding his duffel close. And if they're not alive, they're bait. Either way, we win. Ruby spat blood into the mud. We'll see about that. Behind them, the moans rose again. Low, hungry, and closer than ever. Chapter 7. The Convoy of Doom. Main Street was fire and fog. The Doyles stumbled out of the alleys, dripping river water, shivering and furious. Behind them, the moans swelled louder, echoing through smoke-stained streets. Ruby led, shotgun clutched tight, boots squelching. Jimmy staggered beside her, pale and wheezing. Danny limped barefoot, hopping on one foot every time he hit glass or gravel. Murphy trailed with his grenade duffel, humming like it was Christmas morning. Ruby spat. We need wheels. As if on cue, headlights cut through the haze. A National Guard convoy rolled slow down Main Street. 2 trucks, a Humvee, and a deuce and a half. Soldiers rode on the back, rifles raised. Danny gasped. "We're saved!" Ruby grabbed him by the collar. "Shut up! Don't trust anyone!" Murphy cackled. "Told you! Martial law! They're rounding us up for disposal." He hugged the duffel. "Over my dead body." The convoy braked. Soldiers shouted, "Civilians! Stay where you are!" Jimmy raised his hands. "We're not infected." The nearest sergeant barked. "Orders are to contain the area. All civilians are to be detained." Danny blinked. "Detained? Like jail?" Murphy giggled. "Like mass graves." Ruby snarled. "Run!" Gunfire ripped the pavement as the Doyles dove behind a wrecked sedan. Bullets tore through the fog. Zombies moaned louder, staggering toward the noise. Ruby shouted over the chaos. "We let the soldiers take the hit, then we move." Jimmy peeked over the hood. Soldiers fired into the horde, but the dead didn't stop. The fog churned with screams. One soldier was dragged from the truck bed, throat torn out. Danny whimpered, "We're screwed either way." Ruby chambered a shell. "Then pick the side that doesn't eat you." The convoy collapsed in minutes. Zombies swarmed the lead truck, ripping soldiers apart. The Humvee erupted in flames, bullets cooking off inside. Ruby kicked Danny to his feet. "Move!" They sprinted down an alley, grenades rattling in Murphy's bag. A half-dead soldier stumbled into their path, gut torn open. He reached out. "Help!" Murphy whipped out a grenade and offered it like a gift. "Here, blow yourself to freedom." Ruby shoved him aside and finished the soldier with a shotgun blast. Danny shrieked, "You just killed the army!" Ruby snarled, "The army was already dead." At Harbor View, the seniors were already knee-deep in hell. The barricades were gone. The rec room was a bloodbath. Zombies pushed through every door and window, a tide of hunger. Peggy swung her pool cue, skull fragments flying. "Ray, there's too many!" Grandpa Doyle smashed a corpse's head flat with Harold's walker axe, blood splattering his glasses. "Good! Saves us the trouble of chasing them." Gus jabbed his denture spear into a zombie's throat and twisted, howling with laughter. Mrs. Hendricks swung her skillet, brains streaking the walls. Harold rolled through the carnage, humming tunelessly, accidentally clipping zombies at the ankles. One toppled into a table leg and split its skull open on impact. "Harold saves the day again," Grandpa muttered. The propane tanks rattled louder in the maintenance wing, heat shimmering against the walls. The seniors backed into the corridor, weapons shaking in their hands. Peggy hissed, "Ray, we'll roast alive." Grandpa bared his teeth. Better roasted than eaten. Back in the streets, the Doyles stumbled into the smoking wreck of the convoy. Bodies littered the pavement, half-eaten. Trucks smoldered. Ammo cooked off in bursts of fire. Ruby scanned the carnage. "This whole town's a graveyard." Jimmy muttered, "We just need to keep moving. Find somewhere safe." Danny wailed, stepping on broken glass. "I'm barefoot, bleeding, and I just watched the army get turned into Happy Meals. Where's safe now?" Ruby shoved him forward. "Nowhere." "So stop whining and run." Behind them, the moans grew louder. Hundreds now, maybe thousands. Chapter 8, Fire and Flood. The retirement home burned like hell had leased a condo. Flames climbed the wallpaper, devouring curtains and ceiling tiles. Smoke poured into the halls, thick enough to choke on. The sprinklers coughed out a weak drizzle that only spread the haze. "Great," Peggy wheezed, swinging her pool cue through the smoke. "We're roasting and drowning at the same time." "Quit whining," Grandpa Doyle bellowed, hacking a zombie's skull in with Harold's walker axe. "At least we're not getting eaten." Gus hurled another Molotov down the dining hall. The explosion lit the buffet in a burst of fire. Lasagna finally smelled halfway edible. A zombie in a hospital gown staggered toward Harold's wheelchair. Peggy intercepted it, Q skewering through the gut. The thing dragged her forward until Grandpa finished it with a blow to the head. "See?" Grandpa shouted. "Teamwork!" "You almost shoved me into it, you maniac!" Peggy snapped. The barricade buckled. Zombies poured in, burning and shrieking. Mrs. Hendricks flattened skulls with her skillet. Gus skewered another and laughed. And even Mr. Lewis jabbed with knitting needles, muttering, "Not today, not today." Grandpa scanned the inferno. We can't hold 'em. Propane tanks in maintenance. We blow this place sky high. Peggy's eyes went wide. You're insane. Lady, I was insane before they started eating people. On the bridge, the Doyle van was pinned between death and fire. Zombies clung to the roof, pounding, while the Humvee beside them burned. Jimmy wiped blood from his face. We're out of time. Ruby shoved another corpse back with her shotgun. Then we make time. She kicked the side door open. Below, the river churned black. Danny's eyes bugged. No way. I don't swim. You barely breathe, Ruby snapped. Jump or die. Murphy howled with joy, hugging his grenade duffel like a life preserver. Geronimo! Ruby leapt first. Jimmy swore and followed. Danny squealed and pinched his nose, and Murphy cannonballed in with a splash. The van toppled after them, zombies shrieking as it slid off the bridge into the water. At Harbor View, the seniors shoved their way through smoke toward the back exit. Only a handful made it. Grandpa, Peggy, Gus, Mrs. Hendricks, Harold strapped to his chair, and two shell-shocked stragglers. The propane tanks finally went. Not a single Hollywood blast, but a chain of concussive fireballs, one tank, then another, ripping windows out and lighting the night. Zombies hurled across the lawn, limbs cartwheeling through the air. One flaming corpse smacked into the flagpole and stuck there, burning like a grisly torch. Peggy shielded her face. Ray, you just destroyed our home. Grandpa spat. Correction. I destroyed their home. Ours sucked anyway. Behind them, the few stragglers were dragged down screaming, lost to the horde. The survivors staggered into the night, fire painting their faces red. Downriver, Ruby broke the surface, dragging Danny up by his jacket. Jimmy sputtered beside them, clinging to driftwood. Murphy bobbed downstream, duffel strapped to his chest, whooping like he just won the lottery. The current swept them toward shore. Ruby hacked and coughed, blood and water in her throat. She spat, eyes blazing. We're not dead yet. Danny clung to her arm, choking. Speak for yourself. Jimmy shivered, teeth chattering. Where do we go? Ruby stared toward town. Over the rooftops, Harbor View was burning like a beacon. She wiped blood from her mouth. Looks like someone's throwing a party. Murphy grinned through broken teeth. Told you. Controlled burn. That's a government job. Ruby snorted, coughing smoke. Controlled, my ass. That's where we're headed. Chapter 9. Family Reunion from Hell. Ruby's boots squelched as she dragged herself out of the river mud. Danny collapsed beside her, hacking like a dying seal. Jimmy crawled after, clinging to a plank like it was sacred scripture. Then Murphy surfaced, grenade duffel strapped to his chest, laughing like a lunatic. Ha! Amphibious combat unit, baby. Evolution's finest. Ruby spat river water. You're barely functional, Danny gagged. I swallowed a fish. I know it. Good, Ruby snapped. Protein. Jimmy pointed at the glow above the rooftops. Harbor View's on fire. There might be survivors. Murphy grinned through broken teeth. Or government incineration. Classic cover-up. Ruby yanked Danny to his feet. Move! Before something worse finds us. At Harbor View, Grandpa Doyle leaned on Harold's walker axe, chest heaving. The survivors, just Peggy, Gus, Mrs. Hendricks, Harold strapped to his chair, and two stragglers, stood in the inferno's glow. Zombies shambled across the lawn, some still burning. Peggy coughed, waving smoke away. We can't stay here. Grandpa bared his teeth. We'll move when I say. Till then, they pay toll. Gus skewered a flaming corpse, laughing. Best night of my life. Harold hummed tunelessly, wheels squeaking. The Doyles staggered into view, soaked and bloody. Danny shrieked, Zombies! Armed ones. Jimmy squinted. No, that's... Grandpa? The old man spat. Figures. Even the apocalypse can't kill bad blood. Ruby groaned. Oh, hell no. Peggy frowned. Ray, you know these idiots. Unfortunately, Grandpa growled. That's my worthless bloodline. Lord help us all. Ruby curled her lip. Still ruining everything, 1 decade at a time? Grandpa smirked. Runs in the family. The horde arrived before they could argue more. Dozens surged across the lawn, moaning through smoke. Sparks rained from the collapsing home. The dead poured forward, jaws snapping. Ruby pumped her shotgun. Fight first, insult later. Grandpa hefted his walker axe. Finally, something we agree on. The lawn turned into a slaughter pit. Ruby bashed skulls with her shotgun until it bent. Gus skewered 2 zombies at once, dentures clacking. Peggy swung her pool cue like she was auditioning for Wimbledon. Mrs. Hendricks flattened skulls with her skillet, each hit ringing like a dinner bell. Danny screamed as a burning corpse lunged at him. He hurled his last shoe. It bounced off harmlessly. The zombie staggered. Then Harold's wheelchair rolled forward, tripping it. Mrs. Hendricks finished it with one skillet swing. Harold saves the day again, Grandpa muttered. Murphy yanked a grenade, teeth on the pin. Time for crowd control! Ruby shouted, Don't! He lobbed it anyway. The blast vaporized half a dozen zombies, showering the survivors with gore. A severed arm smacked Peggy in the face. She shrieked, Damn it, Ray, this is your family. Don't blame me, Grandpa barked. I didn't raise that one. The battle raged in blood and smoke. One zombie tripped on Harold's chair wheels, face planting before Gus skewered it with a cheer. Ruby reloaded with shaking hands, eyes meeting Grandpa's. For the first time all night, they didn't look like enemies, just survivors. By the time the last corpse fell, the lawn was unrecognizable. Blood slick, strewn with limbs, lit by Harbor View's flames. The survivors stood panting, Ruby with her bent shotgun, Jimmy pale and wide-eyed, Danny barefoot and bleeding, Murphy giggling in gore. Across from them, Grandpa bloodied but grinning, Peggy glaring, Gus humming, Mrs. Hendricks leaning on her skillet. Harold strapped to his chair. The 2 stragglers hadn't made it. Silence settled heavier than smoke. Peggy finally said, Well, looks like we're roommates. Ruby groaned. Kill me now, Grandpa smirked. Don't tempt me. Chapter 10, Doyle's never die, they just smell funny. The lawn of Harbor View was a graveyard. Flames from the collapsing home licked the night sky. Smoke rolled over the street, and the ground squished with blood and mud. Ruby leaned on her bent shotgun like a cane, glaring across at Grandpa Doyle. You've got some nerve, she rasped, calling us the family curse when you're still here screwing things up. Grandpa's grin split his blood-smeared face. Takes one to know one, girl. At least I make it entertaining. Danny, barefoot and shivering, raised his hands. Can we not fight? We're literally standing in a zombie barbecue pit, Murphy cackled, hugging his grenade duffel. Don't worry, Danny boy. I've got enough party favors to level Eastport. Government wants us gone? We'll go out loud. Peggy groaned, flicking soot off her Skechers. Why did I survive the end of the world just to deal with this circus? The moaning rose like a storm. Through the smoke, hundreds of shadows staggered into view, the biggest horde yet, drawn by fire and carnage. The survivors froze. Gus grinned, planting his walker spear in the dirt like a flag. Guess the fair ain't over. Out of the haze lurched horrors, a firefighter zombie clutching a melted hose, a tourist in an I Heart Eastport shirt with guts hanging out, and a flaming corpse dragging itself across the lawn like a demonic mop. Ruby spat blood. They heard the after party. Grandpa bared his teeth. Then let's give them fireworks. The last stand erupted. Ruby swung her shotgun like a bat, bashing skulls until the stock cracked. Jimmy swung a chunk of wood, hitting more air than bone. Danny screamed every time his bare feet hit glass. Murphy hurled a grenade. The blast shredded half a dozen corpses and showered Peggy in intestines. Friendly fire, Ruby yelled. No such thing, Murphy whooped. Peggy spat gore. Doyle family reunions are the worst. Mrs. Hendricks dented skulls with her skillet, each blow ringing like a church bell. Gus speared 2 at once, then kicked a third into the flames. Harold rolled downhill, humming, plowing through ankles. A zombie slipped in the blood trail from his wheels and face-planted straight into the fire. Harold saves the day again, Grandpa muttered proudly. The horde pressed closer. The survivors swung and hacked, slipping in gore. Zombies clawed at their arms, teeth snapping inches from throats. A flaming corpse lunged at Danny. He shrieked, swung a plank, and knocked its head off. The head rolled into Murphy's arms. He kissed it like a trophy. Proof of cloning. Ruby shoved another back, panting. We can't hold this. Grandpa's eyes blazed. Where are you gonna run? Town's gone. River'll eat you. Number. You want survival? You make it here. Peggy shouted, Ray, you'll get us all killed. He grinned, blood on his teeth. Better me than you? I've run enough. Tonight I hold the line. Ruby froze. For once, she saw not just a stubborn old bastard, but a Doyle ready to die on his own terms. She whispered, You'll never make it. Grandpa winked. Hell, I'm overdue. Tell the curse I said hi. He shoved Harold's chair forward, walker axe raised. The old man barreled into the horde like a berserker, smashing skulls, caving faces, bellowing curses. Blood sprayed, limbs flew. Come on, you rotten bastards! The mob swarmed him, dragging him down, piling high. Still he swung, snarling, until the dead buried him under their weight. Ruby clenched her jaw, forcing herself not to look back. The survivors staggered into the street, coughing, bleeding, limping. Jimmy wiped gore from his face. He bought us time. Peggy's lip trembled, but she steadied her grip on the cue. Then don't you dare waste it. Ruby nodded once. I won't. Murphy tripped over a corpse, grenades rattling. I'm telling you, this is classified. They'll nuke the town by morning. Danny hopped, clutching his foot. Son of a... I stepped on a nail. His scream echoed louder than the moans. Ruby sighed, shoving him forward. Doyles never die, she muttered. We just get worse. The survivors limped into the smoke, leaving fire and ruin behind.